Hey guys, Editing Abby here, and I just wanted to let you know that this part 2 of A Married Couple with Different Beliefs is starting out from the last question we started to answer, which was which part of your partner's beliefs is hardest to support? Okay, so I just didn't want there to be any confusion there because this part 2 just kind of jumps right in. And that's all I wanted to let you guys know, so I hope you enjoy. Thank you for watching. Love you. Okay, but another thing too is our beliefs on specifically the paranormal. So the dead, spirits. I'm big into necromancy. I love talking to spirits. I 1000% believe in ghosts. Yada yada. Quack. Quack is... Being an atheist, you're honestly like fairly open to it. Like you're skeptical. Well, I would say he's a skeptic. That's what I would call you.
I mean...
And it can be kind of annoying. It can be hard to support that, honestly.
I believe in the math of things. You know, I believe that there's probably multiple dimensions. I believe that there's probably alien life in the universe. I believe that, you know... And that's probably as far as my understanding of the universe that we live in goes. You know, as far as ghosts go, you know, I've met many smart people, a lot of people that I really respect on, like, just purely an intellectual level who, you know, very wholeheartedly believe in ghosts, you know. Mm-hmm. Those same people have, you know, more like Christian sort of ideology. Yeah. Of course.
Okay, yeah, right, okay.
But, you know, like people who have the same scientific proclivity as I do. Right? Like, you know, who would verge on, you would think that they were an atheist. But they do believe in God.
Like, who's that guy, Young... he made up like the shadow work theory and like Carl Jung,
yeah.
Like, I feel like he's kind of one of those guys who's very intellectual and intelligent, but he's very like...
Yeah, very spiritual.
Yeah.
And so, you know, but, you know, I've had like English professors that, you know, in high school, I had an English professor that I really admire. I guess he just taught AP English, but you know, even that just shows how much like I respected him because, you know, I still think of him as a professor, mm-hmm. but you know, he was just my English teacher in like junior high or something like that, or mm-hmm. I was a junior in high school. Yeah, and
wow,
you know, he very much believed in ghosts, and I only saw him. You know, I saw him cry once, and he had gallstones or kidney stones, and he still went to school for whatever reason.
Oh, he was in pain?
Yeah,
crying from pain?
Yeah, and he had to leave.
Dude,
I mean,
that sucks. I've heard, my sister has had kidney stones multiple times, and she, as a person who has given birth, she has said that those hurt worse than labor and childbirth. Like they're that
I'm sure
painful.
They do, yeah. I mean,
you can put a full-grown ass man into tears.
I don't think your kidney's supposed to expand or have
or
things.
Pass like
no. That's not what it's designed for. And so, you know, I mean, of course, it's more painful than birth, I think.
Well, don't say of course. You're gonna piss someone. You're gonna really piss some people off.
It's a malfunction in the kidney, which
right.
Yeah, but you know the.
Of course, it's more.
But as far as ghosts go, you know, it's like there's certain like aspects of ghosts which suggest that it would be, you know, it would have mass, and you know, if things have mass, then you know they should be more detectable than ghosts are, right? Like, because there's actual, you know, and that would allow them to stay on the planet. If they don't have mass, if ghosts don't have mass, then gravity wouldn't be able to keep them on the earth, and they would float into space. Like, so, there has to be some sort of mass to ghosts. Ghosts have to,
So his theory is that space is very haunted. That's his theory.
Yeah. I mean, there's just something.
You're just a very, very, very science-based person. Like,
right.
It has to make sense. Whereas to me, I'm very I'm okay with I'm okay with unknown, right? Like, I'm okay with, if science can't prove it, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Like,
well, and there's lots of things about the way that people see ghosts that don't make sense to me either. Like, why do they have clothes? Like that doesn't make sense to me at all.
Why?
Like, you can't take clothes into the afterlife. Why are they clothed?
Well, according to the ancient Egyptians, you can.
I mean,
you gotta argue with the pharaohs.
It just doesn't seem, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I would assume that ghosts would be naked, but I don't even know why ghosts would take the form of a human either. Right,
sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's just like a shadow or like a black cloud, or, I mean, people have seen all kinds of fucking crazy shit.
It's just, some things about what people say about ghosts seem very inconsistent. And, I would like more consistency on that side of things. And, in the ghost theories, I would like it to be less broad and more structured.
Makes sense, damn it. But we can't. That's what I believe, though, is that we have human brains, right? And there are some things that are metaphysical that we just will never understand until we're dead, and even then we might not. Like, I don't know. But I'm okay with that. There's been enough proof in my life to believe. I want to believe.
I haven't.
So basically, you think that space is just a giant haunted nudist colony?
Yeah, I mean, they'd have to be naked. But if they can be visible, then they also have to reflect light, and so that would mean they have mass. So if they are visible, then they're on Earth.
Okay, anyway. But let's get into, I believe that our house that we currently live in, at least used to be, I don't think it still is, but I believe it used to be haunted when we first moved in.
Maybe.
And there's multiple stories. I think it was my first Samhain video I did. I talked about how, my experiences with this house. But, there was one experience that you had. Well, there's two. Where the ice maker... Our ice maker on the fridge, something invisible was pushing down the button to make ice come out. And it was making ice fly on the floor. And you were, trying to pull the button up, and you couldn't get the thing up. Someone was, pushing down. All of a sudden, it just, flew up and stopped.
Yeah, but I fixed that. I mean, I don't know what caused it to begin with.
Exactly. It was a naked space ghost.
Huh.
And then there was another time too that I was asleep. I slept through this whole thing. But it was in the middle of the night, and you heard voices in the toilet flush.
When was that?
Do you remember that?
I don't remember that.
Yes. You told me the next
day.
day, you were like, I heard two people talking, which that's one of my experiences. It was a man and a woman, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Okay, you told me it was a man and a woman talking, and that was one of my experiences too, is a man and a woman talking.
See, and I think that's maybe one thing that
And the toilet flushed. And then you got up thinking we were getting robbed and there was no one here.
Oh, I think I remember that.
Yes.
And I think that's one thing that separates, spiritual people who believe in stuff from, I just don't keep that in my mind. because it's not something that
Dude, I hold on to that shit.
concerns me.
I hold on to that shit. It's not because it really concerns me. It's just like so like, I love it.
Yeah.
You know, and it means something to me.
Yeah.
You know, like to you, I could see like where you could easily let it go because like,
I'm just like
you're knocking the table.
Oh yeah.
It's knocking the camera. Sorry.
It's
But to you, like it's easy for you to let go because it's just like with something so like, oh well, it was probably just whatever. It was probably just like the dogs talking human, which would be just as crazy. But
yeah, I mean, I just don't. You know, even if there were ghosts, as long as they leave me alone, like I have too many earthly things to worry about. So
too many things in the physical plane to worry about.
To bother with those guys.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that's one thing that I'm like, how do you not believe in that? But it's fine, it's whatever. And I think it's hilarious that he thinks that space is haunted. So Leslie also asks here on Instagram, will you be sharing belief systems other than yours to your child? Will you be sharing belief systems other than yours to your child? I can definitely answer that. And I have already thought about this. And I personally love that in our family there are so many different religious and spiritual beliefs. Like you said, your mom is like a fusion of Buddhist, Christian, yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I grew up Christian, but I'm now a witch, pagan. You're an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like there's so many difference. My oldest sister is agnostic. So I just think I personally want him to be introduced to all. Like I would have no problem if he was like, I want to try to go to church like Nina, like grandma, like my mom. Or I want to try out going to a Buddhist temple, or I want to get to know, you know, your witchcraft or whatever. I would support any of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because, like, none of your family actually goes to church.
Well, Mom used to, no pun intended, religiously go to church. But,
yeah.
She did go to church a lot, like, even, you know, after I was older. But now that she's moved, too, she recently moved, like, a few years ago, she's yet to find a church to join, so.
Yeah. And I don't think teaching religion necessarily, or any belief, is necessarily indoctrinating people into it, right? Like having knowledge. That's
what I mean.
Yeah, having knowledge of a belief is, I think that's just courtesy, you know, because that's like, just being aware of the human race, right? Like at this point, like, knowing what other people believe and knowing what those beliefs are part of just being able to talk to people in general.
Yeah,
right? Because,
totally.
You know,
we're just understanding the world.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, if there's a certain, like, level of pop culture that you have to know to be able to have, like, a conversation with an American, right? You have to have a certain amount of knowledge about American culture and what's happening in the world and the news. And that's true with any culture specifically, right? But, you know, also on top of that, there's a certain level of global just competency you have to have these days where, you know, I think maybe like 20 years ago, it was probably okay for people to, you know, it was socially acceptable for people to be like, oh, what kind of Asian are you? Or like, are you Chinese? Like, that was perfectly acceptable. I've gotten that so much. But I think these days...
Well, but like, on the inside, you might be very fucking annoyed, though, even back then.
Right, either way. I mean...
But societally speaking, you're saying.
Right. I think it's these, like, 20 years ago, it was okay for you to only know that China as the only, like, it was okay for you to only be aware of China as a country in Asia, right? Like 20 years ago, you didn't have to know any other Asian countries other than China or Japan.
Yeah.
Right? But now you have to be familiar with a lot of countries. I mean, they're like, you know, the number of European countries that Americans can, you know, say off the top of their heads, probably, you know, France, Germany, Britain, Spain, right? After that, you're kind of in the gray zone. Like, not many people can name many African countries either. But then, like, Asian countries, you know, I think there's sort of like this idea that's like, oh, it's huge, but it's just like mostly China, right? Right. And so,
and a lot of people don't know that India is technically an Asian country.
Right. It's subcontinent of Asia, but you know, the idea that you wouldn't know like the countries of the world, I think not knowing the countries, you know, not knowing religions is like not knowing the countries of the world. Knowing, you know, that there are lots of countries is similar to knowing that there are lots of religions. And knowing, you know, a little bit about those cultures, like maybe knowing about, you know, like chana masala, or, you know, just knowing a little bit about the way other people live is just a part of being human.
Like the fact that we go out and like I feel like also it would be okay a long time ago to get Chinese takeout and like not know anything about like, is this actually Chinese, or like do you know what I mean? Or like the fact that like we were talking about how like my friend Jasmine like recently went to a grocery store that's Arab, it's Middle Eastern, but they also have Indian takeout. And she was like, oh, I didn't know they had both. And like for me, like as a white person who grew up in America, like going to a grocery store like that and learning about like all the different foods and how chana masala and curry is Indian, you know, essentially, right? You know, traditionally. But then like they also have Arab foods and Middle Eastern foods, and like knowing the difference and how it's important to know the fucking difference, like, you know, because it's just, that's just respectful. Like that's
right. I mean, it's like, you know, and it's like the little things, you know, like I remember once we brought up falafel and your mom was like, what's that? I've never had, you know, and falafel is literally one of the most like popular foods in the world.
Right.
You know,
well, and it's okay. It's okay to not know something. It's okay to not know something and to be open to understanding it. But like, I think the problem is some people are just so close-minded. Like they don't even want to know. Like they, you know, I don't know.
Right. I mean, and it's kind of strange, you know, because we live, like Indianapolis is very multicultural. Like there are lots of places, if you just open your eyes, you'll see like, you know, all these American restaurants next to Hispanic restaurants, next to Cuban restaurants, next to Middle Eastern restaurants and Indian restaurants and things like that. And, you know, the thing is like some people will always go to the spaghetti factory every single night, you know, and they'll never step foot in any of those other restaurants or even wonder what the food in those restaurants are, or even, you know, have the desire to eat anywhere else but the spaghetti factory.
Right.
And that's fine, you know, that's okay to some degree, but even the Indianapolis, a sleepy town of a million people, little nap town, you know, there's still a huge amount of cultural diversity of different ways that people live, and you know, you just have to open your eyes and be aware that those things exist.
And a pretty big Korean population.
It's an okay Korean population.
Well, I guess there's not specifically a Korean town like there was in Alaska. Wasn't there like a Korean town? Or is it Vietnamese? I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, they have some Korean stuff in Alaska. My mom...
Wasn't there like a little corner in Anchorage where it was like...
I don't think
there was like an Asian mart and like...
Yeah, they have an Asian mart, but they don't have anything that's specifically Korean. But, you know, my mom moved there because there was a Korean church that sponsored her move up there.
Okay.
And so there is a small Korean population there that
Right.
sort of gets together and stuff. But
Lots of Japanese too, I feel like.
Yeah,
Because it's
yeah.
like a hop and skip,
yeah, it's like
basically. Geographically speaking. What was I gonna say? Anyway, and it's the same thing with spirituality, basically, is what we're getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and,
it's like,
you
it's
know,
important to know, like, how other people think, you know, with anything,
yeah.
including spirituality. And I think that's just a part of raising a child. Like, to me, you know, I mean, if you want to be, you know, like how I was raised, like, we're Christian, we're Lutheran, you're going to this, you're going to that, you're going to church, we believe in that. I mean, I'm not going to say, like, you shouldn't do that, because
Well, you know,
I don't believe you should. I don't believe, like, I'm not going to do that. You know, I feel like that doesn't make a very well-rounded person.
Right. I think it's the difference between only teaching your beliefs versus teaching what the world has to offer, and
Right.
then letting them choose what their beliefs
Yes,
are.
letting
right?
them choose. Like, what is so wrong? I don't understand what's so wrong with that, but... And I feel like lots of times if you force something on a child, like, lots of times it will backfire. Not always, but lots of times it backfires.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look at me now. Like, it backfires, you know, it's...
You know, some things speak to people more than other things, and I think
Yeah.
the sooner you can find that as a human, the happier you'll end up, right? Because, you know, if you're always doing things just because that's what you've been told, then you'll never have that experience where you do something, it just feels right, you know. And I think that's ultimately what we're all looking for, you know. Like, I mean,
Yes, that's like the ultimate human experience.
yeah, it's just finding, you know, that glove that just fits your hands just right, and that whatever thing that you do best that just comes naturally to you, that you can just do forever, and that's the thing that you're going to do for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, finding that joy is hard, and you have to look around and see everything that the world has to offer.
And it's so wonderful when you find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels really good when it's not forced on you and you find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all of the questions that we got on Instagram and YouTube. I have a little bit of a question for Quack. I don't know if you came up with one for me. Okay, you probably didn't. It's fine. But I have a question. Do you think that us being, like, do you think you being an atheist and me being a spiritual witch, a theistic witch, if you will, or an agnostic witch even, do you think that those fit together better than if, like, I was like a hardcore Christian and you were an atheist, or if I was still a witch and you were a hardcore Christian, or something like that?
I don't know. I think,
I would say yes, but
yeah. I mean, it's hard to say, like, with those hypotheticals, like, because I don't know if I really experienced that. Like, I can, like, make a judgment call and just, like, try to generalize what it would be like to be married to, like, a hardcore Christian, but I just don't have that experience. And so I don't know if I, you know, it's something that I can really speak to. But as
Right.
far as our relationship goes, like, I don't think there's any sort of friction there at all, really. It's like,
right.
you know, as I've never, I mean, you know, sometimes it's like, you know, I think when your spirituality sort of meets, like, a point of, like, practicality, like, you want to refurbish a cast iron pot or something, it's like, ooh, that sounds like a fun project. I want to help refurbish a cast iron pot.
What?
You know? Yeah, because it's like, ooh, let's get a drill so we can, like, polish it and then, like, oil it up so it's nice and shiny. And it's like, and I understand there's, like, a really, like, project oriented, like, very practical part of that I want to be a part of in the sense that it's like,
Are you talking about when we found my cauldron?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
when there's just like a, it's just like something cool that I want to help you do, but not necessarily for the same reasons that you
They're not
want
the same
do.
reasons. We find interest in it, but not for the same reasons. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I feel like it meshes together better than, and I was gonna say I think it meshes together better than if I were like a Christian and you were an atheist, because one of them is super blasphemous and one of them's not. Whereas to me and you, like it's both kind of blasphemous.
Yeah, I think,
you know what I mean. Not to use a dramatic word like that, but like societally speaking, like we're viewed as being blasphemous.
Well, I think it depends.
Not necessarily to every individual.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, we live in a very Christian society. Like, America is Christian.
Yeah. And, I kind of...
Or even to other Abrahamic religions. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. I always viewed that kind of Christianity as, like, a sort of old Christianity that sort of was created, because of like white guilt type of thing, I'm responsible for helping to spread Christianity throughout the world, right? Like that type of Christianity, I view that from like a historical lens, like from, the 1800s to present, where
what do you mean? So like, are you talking about like if a Christian person called us blasphemous, you think that's very old school? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that view of Christianity where you like, where if you're not a Christian, then I need to convert you.
Okay.
To help save your soul.
Okay.
I view that Christianity from a historical lens, and I don't really see that as the current Christian.
It's still very prevalent.
Well, sure, of course it's prevalent, but I don't see that as sort of the mainstream Christian church.
Yeah.
From my sense of the Christian community, like I sort of see it as the more modern, like, UU kind of church style.
Right.
But also, from my growing up in Texas, I saw that the prevalence of those churches, like, become more and more popular. Like, when, Korean churches are very, like, strict, conservative type of churches. And I went to those when I was young. And then as I went through high school, I met people who were Christians who were part of, like, more liberal churches. Mm-hmm. And to me, that meant that was becoming more popular and more mainstream than the crazier kind of churches. I did go to a church once with a friend who had, they were like speaking tongues and stuff.
Yeah.
It was wild, like, but that, that kind of church, I think, is not necessarily the mainstream. I think it's the kind of church that gets more attention in media, but I don't necessarily know if that's No,
it's not. And I'm not necessarily saying like they want to convert you or spread the good word. I mean, a lot of Christians do that too. But I guess I'm just saying like blasphemous as in like, I've talked to more Christians about my witchcraft that are very weirded out by it or a little judgy of it.
Right.
Than Christians who are like, oh, that's kind of cool, or oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, including family members. Like, there are some people I just don't talk to about it.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily mean like they would go out of their way. Like, if one of us was Christian, we would go out of our way to try to convert each other or something like that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, it might be hard to... Whereas, like, us, like, we support each other, no problem, really, basically, for the most part. But, like, if one of us was a hardcore Christian, we might struggle with supporting one another. It
Yeah.
might not, I don't think it would work out. I don't know. There might be, I'm sure there's tons of Christian atheist couples out there that make it work. Sure.
Yeah, I think some of the Christian, some of the ceremony in Christianity that a hardcore Christian, like if I think about in practical terms, like what parts of my life would change if you were a Christian? Would we have to go to church every Sunday?
Yeah.
Would we have to, worship? Would we have to make friends with Christian people? Like, as far as hardcore Christian stuff goes, because a lot of Christianity is more than just like being like, oh, I believe in God and this is how I praise him, right? It goes beyond that. There's a community that you have to join, and there's you have to bring the donuts for breakfast. Like that's the one thing I remember the most is the fucking donuts.
And the free juice.
But there's always someone's bringing donuts, right? And I guess that
some Christians don't go to church, but
yeah, but if you're talking hardcore
right,
Christians, that's what I think of. I probably would have a harder time doing things like that just because I'm more of an introvert. I don't like talking to other people as much, and I don't really like.
Well, we're both introverted.
I'm not fond of that experience. Of course, you're a part of a community, right? But that the way that you interact with your community doesn't necessarily force me to do anything in particular, and so
right, because all my friends are online.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like the most that you're going to be involved probably.
Yeah.
So I was just curious. I just think that because technically atheism to a Christian is very like it can be very like, now I'm not saying like shocking, but it can be very like, oh, I could never, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So it's just like, I just feel like for that reason, like you and I, like we work out, even though like we don't believe the same thing, like our beliefs still mesh way better than an atheist and a Christian.
Yeah.
Or an atheist and an Abrahamic religion in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I told you about that time my mom sent me on a blind date.
Yeah, and you guys are, yes, I was going to bring that up, that you have dated hardcore Christians in the past, or like went on a date with one.
Right. I could never
He couldn't do it. Yeah, you
couldn't
couldn't do it. You guys argued on your first date. He still jokes about it to this day. He was like, she drove me insane. Like, there's no way you guys could make it work.
Yeah, I don't even know what we did. Maybe we went out for dinner. I don't know. We were in the car. I remember being in the car with her and just like
yelling at her.
Not yelling at her, but we were having a very like
arguing.
Yeah, we were having a very like blatant, a very argumentative conversation about the existence of God, or
right.
And it just,
now at that point you were very atheist at that point.
Yeah. And
how old were you?
I was probably like 21 or.
So you were in Alaska?
No. I was like 20. Maybe I was 19.
Oh, it was in Texas.
Yeah, I was in Texas, and so.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was. And it's one of those things that, like, to some extent, there's no real evidence, right? No one can ever like provide you very tangible evidence. It is a lot to do with how you feel about things.
Personal gnosis. Personal gnosis. Absolutely.
And at that point, it is two people who feel very strongly about something that just will never be able to convince.
And I guess that's part of it too, is like in the witchy community, well, some witches are assholes, just like any community, but there's bad apples. But for the most part, the witchy community is extremely open. And like, we want to know about each other's gnoses, UPGs. We want to know about each other's thoughts and how do you practice, or how do you work with this deity, or like, we know that we all have different relationships with spirit, and we all have different paths, and maybe that's what it is too, is like the open-mindedness, and like, you know, I don't know. I don't know, but well, our camera's overheating again, so I guess we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we only have 17 seconds. Okay. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. That's all we have to say for now. And until next time, I hope you stay very well. And don't forget to follow the snake. Love you. Bye.